belong to the past, but they have their reasons why they used to have that. And the same thing with genital mutilation, whatever we want to call it. It's not, of course, it's not accepted in the 21st century. However, how much of the budget are we spending on educating these families through the embassy, through our own border agencies, when they are going abroad, to let them know that this is not acceptable in the 21st century. They are better with it. The defenders of this practice, they will talk about health issues, they will talk about tradition, but health is also one aspect that people forget to look at, why they do it in certain practices. And, you know, before we start legislating about other people's culture and tradition, we need to understand it better. I'm not saying acceptable, what I'm saying is that understand better with this community relations and the issue we can all work together to fight it and find it. So education is definitely important, working with all the different stakeholders, you know, and a coordinated approach, I think is the best way forward, not punitive approach.
No, that's very useful. That'll be a good guiding thread throughout our inquiry. Thank you. James, do you have any questions for us? Don't feel obliged, but any questions?
Yeah, I've got one. It's not really a question. As you said, it's a national thing. I think on the reporting of it, it's a national trend. I think from what you've said today, you've talked about good things that we can forward with. But my question relates to the monitoring tool. I think you partly answered it. So there's going to be a central database. Mm-hmm. So would that link into safeguarding as well as early intervention and schools? You know, would there be problems? Because I've been in situations whereby what's on the safeguarding database is restricted to early intervention because of safeguarding. So how?
I think it will be a health database. So there's going to be, because actually most of these families may not even come our way. And may not need to. Like Councillor Lamb said, it's about actually engaging the community and teaching the community to maybe break that cycle and change their beliefs of what's good for girls and not. So the homeless are coming up with the guidance in September, I understand, and the tracking system for September this year. But I think there's going to have to be very clear information sharing protocols wrapped around it, etc. And having set up the MASH, it's doable. It can be done, but it's got to be obviously fair and proportionate. But if it's universal led, i.e. health services, then they will have access to that information. Yes, that's a mum who's had it, therefore a daughter who may be all the father, from that community where they practice that. So it'll be on a system that's accessible to universal services. Yeah. But I'm hoping the guidance, what I've led to believe from the summit is the guidance will cover, the information sharing protocols. It would have to. Yeah. But I think what's important is that we in Southwark have we're starting to think about what we can do in the meantime in case that guidance is delayed and that system is delayed and not set up for various reasons, that we have something in place, that information shared.
Okay. Thanks. Charlie, did you have anything to add?
Just very briefly, I find it very hard to be rational about this horrible, nasty practice. It really is. When you hear people say, oh, it's sort of a cultural thing, I'm afraid I can't go along with that at all. What I would say, though, is that I think the midwives and obstetricians do have a major role in this by identifying mothers who have gone through it already, because it's very likely that their child will go through it, and then it's up to us to try and break that link in the chain. So that practice doesn't continue. And there are things we could do. We were talking about border agencies. We take the passports away from football hooligans. Why can't we take the passports away from potential persons? We should go to a court, to a judge and say, we should challenge the family, and if the family is not prepared to go along with this, social services should go to a judge and say, we feel that the child is at risk of being taken from this country, because I understand that most of these procedures are carried out back in the mother country, and a passport should be taken away, so that child cannot then be taken out. I know some people would hold their hands up in horror and say all about civil rights and all the rest of it, but what would happen to this poor child?
Absolutely, and I think that's what the civil. I think that's what the civil protection order is about.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, and I was pleased to hear that.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
trying to find middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, we're exploring some orders in relation to sort of active cases at the moment. I mean, we've been looking at a forced marriage protection order, which is a new order, and it's to prevent a child, the risk of a child. So the family has been cooperative, and sometimes it's very, very difficult to know. You know, the child's concerned and very distressed, that the family are being conciliatory, and you know, we want our child out. It's hard for us to work out, but there are these orders available to us where we can seek them, and it just you know, provides a safety net so the child can't be removed from the country, and that would cut off that possibility generally, and narrow down the possibility of that happening. But in certain cases, so I wouldn't see the sort of widespread use of orders like that, but certainly where there's an identification and risk that's clearly identified, and that's where the assessment is so critical.
Okay, we're ready to sum up now. Can you put the camera? We're ready to sum up now. I just want to say thank you so much for your time on this. What we're suggesting, but I wanted to share this while Rory and April were here, because we're going to discuss the work plan, but we were going to suggest that as we think we're nearly ready to go on this, especially in the light of this evening's discussion, that the January meeting, we could have scrutiny in a day. Sorry, September. Your meeting in January. So the September meeting, we'll have scrutiny in a day, and then we'll have a small business meeting in the evening after that. But the whole of the meeting, and in fact longer, will be dedicated, because we don't all have to inquire, you know, we don't have to sit on every inquiry, but we'll have quite a few people in. We'll put that list together. If it's all right, Rory and April, I'm sure you've got to see that list anyway, but we'll share you with the people that we are going to invite. And if you want to add any more, that would be really, really useful. In particular, around the summit, you know, people that attended the summit, it would be good to have them on board as well. Because really what we're dealing with now, I think, you know, we are catching up, aren't we, after the spell bid, and that's great to see. And obviously that's in big part the work that you spoke of tonight. But really we're looking at communication, prevention and safeguarding, all of those issues, which we'll look at in scrutiny in the day, and we'll also try and speak to some of the people that have been, you know, knee-deep in, well, even so in Newham, you know, I'm sure we'll have some really good ideas about integrating with the community. So hopefully that will add value to the work and allow us to get, you know, beneath some of these stats, really.
So we can ask survivors.
Yes.
Yeah, there is one listed. There's someone who works in Newham actually, who is a survivor. So there's a link in there. I think Dr. Comfort Momo would certainly have, because she's called Coffee Mornings, which I've attended with survivors. So I think she'd be a great link for you, and for you know, getting in women who have.
Chair, I suggest in order to have a balanced approach to it, perhaps we could also have evidence from those who are pro, not necessarily we accept, because if we want to have a balanced understanding of an issue, it's not only those who are pro something you should be listening to. You should also be listening to those who are against it.
I'm not really sure about that. I don't know what value that would add. I mean,
we're collecting evidence, isn't it?
Yeah, we are collecting evidence, but it's illegal, isn't it? So I'm just, do you see what I mean? And because of that, well, we can assess the legality of that.
I
think there is, you know, those who are fighting against it now are from communities where they grew up knowing that was practiced, and they have connections with people who still do. So I think the research is showing that there is an awareness out there about why families do it, why it's still continuing, and you know that these aren't families who want to hurt their children. They do it because they believe it's best.
Exactly,
for them.
and
so
that's
I think
the
that's
point.
there without having to talk to
it's
someone
not that
pro.
we want to encourage it, but or
I think
sharing
that
or
really
the standard, and that's
But there
what
wouldn't
I'm
be
thinking.
anything we can say that would add to it.
Okay.
I think the reach is there, that those views, yeah.
Well,
I don't like to play the devil's advocate without becoming the devil myself. That's my job.
Interestingly, I've met recently with parents who very strongly believe in, physical chastisement of their children, and sort of having a dialogue with them and looking at alternatives. And we've got very strong sort of parenting groups and parenting offer, and those parents that have been through that parenting offer speak very, very positively about their experience. So we're able to bring along parents who have, learned new ways of relating to particularly their sort of teenage young people, instead of feeling, they need to resort to physical violence. And they felt that, the officers of the council are creating more problems in the community by stopping them from hitting their children. So that's been quite productive, and we'd like to be doing more of that with the community. In fact, we've got another strand of work looking at how we can engage more with the community about physical chastisement and reducing its use and looking at alternatives to doing that.
And you're absolutely
so in a sense, we are talking with people. People who are committed parents, really trying to do the best for their children, but not in a way that is acceptable to us. And we'll be saying, you will be prosecuted. You face the risk of prosecution if you do this, but there's an alternative way. So in some way, it's about engaging with parents who have a different view about how their children should be brought up, and we've got to help them move from that position, because otherwise they're just butting up against us, and we're going in with the police, and a lot of parents are finding they're in the police station, and that can fracture the relationship with children.
And you also,
I'm not.
And that's the point I was making. Not that
That's
pro.
a good
Yes.
point. But in terms of scrutiny, and obviously we've got some scrutiny experts here, Julie and Shelley, behind the camera. But that is quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Because if you're scrutinising something academically, if you're scrutinising, you need to get underneath. You need to find out what the motivations are.
That's right. Yes.
However, if you have a service that's actually doing that work anyway, wouldn't we be best scrutinising, adding someone that has actually changed their mind and asking them what's worked? Do you see what I mean?
Scrutinising the work.
Yes,
Scrutinising how we're doing that.
Yes. Because otherwise we're raising awareness. And one of the things that we would say, I can imagine now that one of the things we'll be looking at is how we can add value to your communication strategy on the basis of what we've done. So I'm not sure.
And exactly, to that understanding that will allow you to be able to communicate to them why you think is the bad practice, outdated practice, that doesn't belong to the 21st century.
Giving the counter argument.
Yeah.
I guess you're not from the truth.
They believe it's good because of health reasons. So we've got to say, like when we say the physical chastisement, is what's the alternative?
Exactly, and that's why I took the point you made earlier. That was a very perfect point you made about, it's not that we're supporting, smacking a child or something. It's about sharing that understanding, also saying, actually, there's a better way, there's an alternative. And listening to people who have moved from that culture of...
I'm just going to bring you in now from a technical scrutiny point.
I think it's just to try and create a space where everybody can bring in a variety of people and that so you can have a dialogue. So one way could be is to really reach out to the faith community or communities where the practice is and invite them in and then try and, so you're framing it very clearly that it's not acceptable, but you're trying to create a space to have a wider dialogue.
Exactly. And that's the point I'm making. Because we're only talking to ourselves very converted who are against that practice.
In the interest of time, there is that idea of quitting while one's ahead. All right then. So, okay, thank you very much for your time. We won't keep you anymore. We'll just get on with this now. And please stay in touch with us between now and September so that we can actually get it right, really. Because we planned it so well last year, doesn't mean to say we can't change it in view of, this really useful report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was